This is one of the most deadly sites in all of Louisiana. The Capitol Lakes first came to be at the turn of the 20th century. The over 4 square mile body of water sits right next to the state capitol building and a city park. The park is scenic and beautiful, but underneath all the pretty vistas lies a wide breadth of problems.
There's currently a multi-stage process to clean up the Capitol Lakes, and we're currently in phase 1, and we don't know how many phases there will be, so it's looking pretty good.
For decades, everything seemed fine, and the lake was a hotspot for recreation and fishing. But in the early 70s, that began to change, when the EPA found traces of oil, pesticides, and cancer-causing PCBs in the historic lake. A decade later, a fishing warning was issued due to the high levels of metal and PCBs in the water. That's right, the fish are toxic. At the same time, the state cautioned residents to avoid contact with both the water in the lake and the sediment surrounding it. To help with this issue, the government poured silt into the lakes to dilute the amount of contaminants, and the problem seemed to have gone away for a long time.
So where did all this start? Back in 2016, plans were laid out to make the lakes healthy again, and there were also plans to make the different lakes around the Capitol area into one single body of water, which would help flood risk.
But these plans were deemed too expensive by then-Governor John Bel Edwards, but it was a problem that he couldn't seem to avoid. Only 1 year later, scientists found contaminants in the lakefish again, meaning that the problem was rearing its head again. This led to public outcry, with many asking then-Governor John Bel Edwards to take action on the issue. So in 2022, he did just that, by begging the federal government for money to help out with a plan to combine the lakes. He asked the EPA to make the lakes a Superfund site, allowing lots of federal resources to flow into the state project. This was eventually approved, and in March of 2023, the lakes were listed as one of the highest priorities in all of the United States.
The lakes have been under construction for a while now, and together with the combined forces of like 20 different private companies, they're working on flood risk protection and water quality improvements, which sounds great.
But what's troubling about this is that there is no real timeline on the project. It might take years, and the EPA is not known for being speedy. It's also set to cost millions of dollars over the project's never-ending span. Marie Constantine, a photographer and co-founder of the Louisiana Stormwater Coalition, says that it shouldn't really take this long or take this much money.
And at some point, dredging all this stuff out is going to be millions and millions of dollars.
By the way, wouldn't you think that Baton Rouge would have the issue of flooding figured out by now? I mean, like with how much it rains here, you would think that they would have a better plan for that already.
Marie has been living in the Baton Rouge area for decades. She's watched as the government has gone back and forth on how to handle the pollution at the lakes. Through her decades of experience dealing with the lakes, she has been critical of the government's plan to dredge them. Marie is at the forefront of the movement to clean up the lakes. She's testified in front of the state legislature and has spent time telling others about why it's important.
And we really just need 600,000 max to stop the flow in the most primitive way. If we wanted to be excellent, like Kim Mulkey is always excellent, we would drop in hydrodynamic separators and we would grab the plastics before they hit the water. So the university gets millions of dollars, and who's looking at the millions to see that it's spent? And I know there was a guy that did some fabulous research on gas pipes and how they leak, and he found a way to catch it sooner. That's real research. This is not real research. This is 35 years old. This is something that I could do, and I would do it for free. And I've never even had a cup of coffee for my work, and I would never want a cup of coffee. I could do this for free, and that's the frustration.
Marie represents the difference in what the government thinks needs to happen and what scientists say is the best course of action. While neither side is inherently wrong, Marie does claim that her expertise could knock the project down a few $100,000 and save some time too.
You know, I think caring about the environment is becoming mainstream. And I think that once it becomes mainstream, people are going to have to listen. I love when the young ones come out because we're the ones that messed up their world. And I always feel like my niece Wendy and my nephew Jason, when I go home to God one day, I want them to say, by God, my Aunt Marie cared about my world. And they're going to say Aunt Marie cared about my world if it's up to me. And so I think it's important for people my age to get out here and just do something. Pick up some litter, like big deal, Don't make it so huge in your brain that you're paralyzed and you do nothing.
So with all of this considered, and as Ms. Constantine said, there are still plenty of issues with the Capitol Lakes, separate from that of the water that causes cancer.
It makes sense to take care of this situation immediately. We don't need to study it for 2 years, and we don't need to spend $1 million for somebody to tell us what they are advising for us to put in there. It's really not rocket science.
Time will tell how all of this shakes out, but as Marie shows us, it's important to be active in your local and state government because you never know when the fish might be toxic.